We have been watching this series, and by extension reading this poem, for 12 weeks. In that time we have spent a great deal of attention on Odysseus, his intelligence, his failures, his grief, his pride, his patience. He is the poem's hero in the formal sense. But there is another figure who has been present from the very beginning, invoked in the opening of episode 3 and shadowing every subsequent episode, doing what she does at the center of Ithaca, while Odysseus does what he does at the edges of the world. She has been managing an impossible situation for 20 years, and she has done it with the same quality of mind that her husband has been applying to his wanderings. Homer gives them both the same epithet, periphron, thoughtful, resourceful, crafty. The poem's title is the Odyssey. Its hero is Odysseus, but the cleverest person in it is Penelope. Today, the shroud, the bow, the test of the bed, and what the poem is actually arguing when it gives us as its final act a recognition scene that is conducted entirely on her terms. When the poem begins, Penelope has been holding the suitors off for 3 years by means of a stratagem that is, in its way, as elegant as anything Odysseus attempts in the wanderings. She has told the suitors that she will choose a husband when she finishes weaving a burial shroud for Odysseus's father, Laertes. She works at the loom all day. Every night she unravels what she has woven. For 3 years the shroud is never finished, because it is never meant to be finished. She is buying time, manufacturing delay by the simplest possible method. It is also undetectable, provided no one betrays her. Someone eventually does betray her, and the suitors force her to complete it. But the 3-year stratagem is the measure of Penelope's intelligence in the same way that the Cyclops episode is the measure of Odysseus's. Both involve operating under constraint with limited resources against an adversary who cannot simply be refused. Both involve a deception that is formally brilliant in its simplicity. What is striking about the shroud stratagem is that it asks for very little credit. It does not require Penelope to be visibly heroic or publicly clever. It requires her to be patient, consistent, and to maintain a deception that the entire household could, in principle, observe. The heroism of this is the heroism of maintenance, doing the same thing invisibly every night for 3 years in the knowledge that it must eventually fail. Helen Foley, in her influential essay on the Odyssey's gender dynamic, notes that Homer applies to Penelope at key moments the same kind of epic simile that he uses for Odysseus: the ship in the storm, the survivor clinging to wreckage. The poem is deliberate about making her endurance visible as endurance, not as passive waiting. She is active, she is working, the work happens to be invisible. The suitors have now forced Penelope to complete the shroud, and they are pressing her toward a decision. She has been delaying for 3 years, and the delay has run out. She enters the storeroom where Odysseus's great bow is kept and announces the contest. She will marry whichever of the suitors can string the bow and shoot an arrow through 12 axe heads in a row. A bow he received as a gift and which only he could string. The consensus reading is that Penelope sets the contest, knowing no suitor will succeed, as a further delaying tactic. This is probably right, but it may not be the whole picture. There is a minority scholarly view, argued carefully by Marilyn Katz and John Winkler, that Penelope already knows or strongly suspects that the beggar in her hall is Odysseus. If she does, then the bow contest is not a delaying tactic, but a strategic move. She is giving her husband the weapon he needs in public, in a way that she can arrange without being seen to arrange it. The poem does not resolve this ambiguity, and I think the ambiguity is deliberate. What matters is not whether Penelope knows. It is that either reading makes her more intelligent than the conventional account allows. If she suspects and acts, she is orchestrating the homecoming. If she does not know and acts anyway, she produces the same result by strategic instinct alone. Both readings require her to be a full agent in the Odyssey's final movement, not a passive beneficiary of her husband's return. When Odysseus strings the bow, effortlessly, sitting on his stool, plucking the string so it sings, the suitors understand that the game has changed. What follows is the slaughter of the suitors, which Homer narrates in considerable detail. It is violent, it is systematic, and it has disturbed readers for centuries. I do not want to evade this. The poem's sense of justice is not ours. 108 men die, including servants who assisted the suitors. Some of them are hanged. The Odyssey does not apologize for this, and it does not expect us to be comfortable. What it does expect is that we understand the household has been occupied and desecrated, and that Odysseus's understanding of justice requires complete restoration, not negotiated settlement. This is the heroic world. It operates by different moral arithmetic than we do. The suitors are dead. The hall has been cleaned. Penelope has been told that her husband has returned. She comes down to the hall and she does not recognize him. Or, and this is what makes the scene extraordinary, she withholds recognition, and the poem does not tell us which it is. Odysseus stands before her, himself, unmasked, and Penelope sits across from him and looks at him in silence, and Telemachus reproaches her for her coldness, and she says, "If he truly is Odysseus, we will recognize each other because we have signs between us that no one else knows." She tests him. She tells the servant to move the marriage bed out of the bedroom, their bedroom, for the stranger to sleep in. It is a seemingly trivial instruction, and Odysseus breaks open completely. He is furious. He says, "Who has moved that bed? That bed cannot be moved. I built it myself with my own hands, cutting the root of an olive tree that grows in the courtyard, shaping the trunk into the bedpost, building the bedroom around it. The bed is rooted in the living earth, and it cannot be moved, so who has cut the root?" Penelope weeps. She recognizes him not by his face, not by his body, not by his name, by the knowledge of the bed, knowledge that only the two of them have, knowledge that is rooted in the same earth as the marriage itself. This is Homer's most carefully designed recognition scene, and it earns everything that has come before it. 24 books of disguise and testing, and patience and delayed revelation have been building toward a recognition that is, in the end, the woman's test and not the man's. Penelope has waited 20 years for a person who knows what she knows about the bed. The question was never whether Odysseus was alive. The question was whether he was still Odysseus, whether the person who came back was the same person who left, carrying the same knowledge of home. She set the test, she administered it. The recognition happens on her terms. Foley's analysis of the poem's reverse similes reaches its culmination here, when Penelope finally weeps and runs to Odysseus. Homer compares her relief to a shipwrecked sailor reaching land. The woman's relief is given the man's simile. The man's ordeal is given the woman's structure. Patient, domestic, rooted in the household. The poem has been redistributing what counts as heroism for 24 books. The recognition scene is where the redistribution is complete. The Odyssey begins with a man who cannot get home, and ends with a man who has. But home in this poem is not a place. It is a relationship, verified by the knowledge of one specific bed that is rooted in the living earth of a particular courtyard in Ithaca. 20 years of wandering, 20 years of war. Every temptation and catastrophe the poem has put in Odysseus's way have been the long proof that this relationship is the thing that cannot be replaced or substituted. Calypso could not replace it, Circe could not replace it, Nausicaa could not replace it, the Chaos of Troy could not replace it. The poem's argument is that a specific, rooted, accumulated life that constitutes a person and a marriage and a household is worth more than any version of the general. Not fame in the abstract, not immortality in the abstract, not pleasure in the abstract. That is the end of the Odyssey, and it is, on reflection, the most ambitious claim that Western literature has yet made about what a human life is for. And that's the end of the Odyssey, and the end of this 12-week series. I'd like to thank the people who've been watching since episode 1, and the people who found their way here somewhere in the middle, and anyone who came across us on Substack who's been reading the ancillary material we've published around the Homeric literature. It's been a genuine pleasure to make this, and starting next week we'll be moving on to Greek tragedy, Aeschylus, Sophocles and Euripides, 3 playwrights and 11 plays, and a form of drama that the West invented and has never quite itself equalled. If the Odyssey is about the cost of getting home, the tragedies are about the cost of being human when the gods are not on your side. Oedipus, Antigone, Clytemnestra again, from the other side of the story. The House of Atreus. I'll see you next Thursday.